It's really good. It's really good. Daniel Day-Lewis is in it. Don't you love Daniel Day-Lewis?
Yeah, no.
He's in it. Leonardo DiCaprio's in it. What's the chick that was in The Mask and was in... no, Cameron Diaz. She's in it. She's actually really good. It's really good. It's based on a true story about gangs in Manhattan right before the Civil War when all these Irish people are coming over. And the Irish are coming over at this point just in droves. Right? I mean, this is the height of the Irish immigration. And so the Know Nothing Party's reaction. In fact, in the 1886 election, and some of you had asked about maybe it was Keaton or Tevis had asked, had they ever had any success? Millard Fillmore actually won some electoral votes. In the end, James Buchanan wins. But what we're seeing is the country is starting to really fracture. Right? Presidential elections tend to tell us where the part of the country is, and we're seeing our country really begin to fracture. And then it's going to be ripped apart with the Dred Scott decision. We might get to Lincoln. All right. Dred Scott decision, yes.
What did you say the Know Nothing Party was a reaction to?
Immigration. Well, the Know Nothing Party is the nativist party. Did we talk about that before?
Yes.
What's nativism?
Anti-foreign.
Yeah, anti-foreign, right? This is an anti-foreign party. They were called the Know Nothing Party because they're kind of secretive. They say, what do you stand for? They say, I don't know nothing. But this was ultra anti-immigrant. By the way, I'll stop for a second. I went to Lexington County last night for an open house for prospective students. They do something that's really interesting. I want to see your perspective on this because you're a first block AP US class, and it's one of my second one ever done. Hannah's was my first ever AP US class. I don't like having it first. They actually, every period, like every day, the periods move. So like what you have first block one day, you will have like your third block the next day and your fifth block the next day, and so it changes. That way you're always in the same class at the same times. And we asked if it was confusing, and they said the first couple of weeks of the year they stay on one for a couple of weeks, one schedule, and they'll switch to a different schedule for a couple of weeks to get everyone used to it. And he says it's not really a thing. And the kids like it because you don't have the same class in the mornings, you don't always have the same classes in the afternoons. What do you think about that?
I think that would be really interesting.
Clubs.
Do what?
Like what clubs that have people in different.
I can't hear you.
I don't know.
Who's making sounds, Pete?
It's about clubs.
Like classes that have. I've confused myself.
I can tell that.
I think that would keep a lot of kids from getting too much into a routine because
I don't know.
But
Yeah,
some kids
but
like
they
they
did
go
that,
through their
they
classes
have
and the
to
routine.
do,
They're
like,
just like,
class
oh, this class, I'm so tired.
No, people don't. I mean, it's that they said it's not an issue. Remembering where you are is not an issue.
Yeah, so that's us in Catholic.
It would mess up the bathroom schedule.
Well, I'm sure that whether or not this is not less than Catholic, our kids can keep track of what day it is. Oh my gosh, first Monday, then Tuesday? What's next? Right? I mean, everyone, hopefully you can figure out the schedule.
Friday, hopefully.
I haven't had my watch on all week and I've been completely lost.
Right.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know what day it is.
It was really interesting.
It's Halloween.
It was a really interesting
Well,
tour and stuff. You weren't here, Mary wasn't here. I literally told Miles yesterday that I wanted to take Mary, and I thought about taking you. I wanted to take her aversion to Catholic schools. I wanted to take her, right, I want to take her to see what her reaction was to everything. And she wasn't here yesterday.
One of my best friends from the summer goes to Lexington Catholic, and I think it sounds fantastic, and I tried to get my mother to let me go there, and she wouldn't.
But anyway, I want to take Mary just to see if she would hate it a little bit less. Miles told me she would not hate
She
it
would.
less.
She would probably hate it more. She was so opposed.
When all the kids were, so many kids were there. They didn't have to be. They just wanted to be there to show off the school and stuff. And everyone was there, and they were all in those adorable little uniforms. It was pretty great.
What did their uniforms look like?
Their uniforms are very.
it's like a blazer jacket.
No,
Sport jacket.
it's not. It's girls wear khaki skirts or khaki shorts or khaki pants, and they can have red, blue, white, yellow, like 5 or 6 different color polos or button downs that have Lexington Catholic on it, or sweatshirts, and then they can have like If it's like the Cali, they can have sweatshirts, and then they can pretty much have any shoe socks, so long as it doesn't show your toes. Like no flip-flops, essentially. But you can wear those, you can wear whatever. People wear Toms.
Yeah.
If they didn't have khaki skirts, I would buy them.
Khaki skirts are the most adorable part.
They're adorable on little children, but once you get older, it's just kind of like.
I own a khaki skirt. I don't think it's
If it was a plaid skirt, that is something completely different.
My daughter's school has, you can wear plaid or navy skirts.
I would do that.
You're allowed to do it here. We don't keep you from doing that
I
if you
know.
like that. All right, Dred Scott decision. You guys have read about this. Who was Dred Scott? He was a slave. So why do we know about Dred Scott, Deanna?
Because it was disputed over whether or not he was allowed to set free.
Well, why was he in dispute? Bragging on you yesterday, King. Why is Dred Scott, JCI?
Did he try to buy his freedom?
Well, actually, somebody else had to buy his freedom later. But that's not why he's in dispute.
He tried to sue for his freedom because they brought him into technically free state.
Free territory. He had been brought into Illinois territory and then into Wisconsin territory as his owner was a military guy, okay? And he sued for his freedom because he lived in a territory that disallowed slavery. Are you with me? So this went and made its way to the Supreme Court. Now remind me, Roger Taney is the Supreme Court Chief Justice. How does he tend to lean on the issue of slavery? Very pro-slave, right? Pro-slavery, not pro-slave, pro-slavery. And this decision is going to have a gigantic impact on our country. In fact, this decision is going to get Lincoln to run for Senate. What the decision of Roger Taney is that a slave is like any other property, whether it's a horse or a hammer or anything. And territories do not have the right to disallow slavery. Think about the impact of that decision. Now, obviously, his isn't the only decision, right? It's the Supreme Court, there's 9 justices, but he had the majority opinion. What does that say then?
They're not even.
Slavery can be any territory. Does this go into your essay about the issue of slavery territories? Yes. This says slavery can move into any territory. And so therefore, what was ruled to be unconstitutional? The Missouri Compromise was. The Missouri Compromise said slavery had to be stopped at the 36-30 line. This said that is unconstitutional. This is a Fifth Amendment argument. You have the right to property. The Fifth Amendment gives you the right to life, liberty, and property. Which many of you, if you remember from World Civ last year, is a French thing, right? The Declaration of Rights of Man from France, life, liberty, property.
John.
That was a John Locke idea. Yes, he didn't write that for France, but yes. So now slavery can be anywhere. So you can be an anti-slavery, pure abolitionist in the north, and next door to you could be a farm that has slaves.
But it has to be like a slave bought in the South, right? And it's brought north.
Yes, the slave trade is illegal in certain states, but in territories they can bring slaves. They can go, northerners can go south, buy slaves, and bring them north if they want, to the territories. This makes the Missouri Compromise. So Kansas-Nebraska Act just undid the Missouri Compromise, which was bad enough, and this now says it's unconstitutional in the first place. That the Fifth Amendment gives people the right to property wherever they want it. So the North is now horrified at this decision. And many Northerners are like, you know what, this was a decision. You can't make us do this. You can't force us to do this. And so now you've got parts of the country ignoring the judicial branch and parts of the country ignoring the legislative branch. They're ignoring what they don't want. Is that what we want in a democracy? Choosing to do what you want. I would love to choose to have our country not enforce certain amendments. But we gotta. Isn't that part of democracy? Sometimes things suck. I've actually never lived in a state that voted for the president that I voted for. In fact, I've never lived in a state that voted for this. I've never voted for a winning senator in my life. Ever. I've never been in a state that's voted for the president that I want. The presidents have won sometimes, but never for my state. Sometimes you lose. If you're relatively liberal and you live in the South, you always lose. You just have to deal with the fact that you're never going to win. You have to be okay with that. Or move to Boston. And to be fair, if you're a conservative and you live in San Francisco, you never get what you want.
Poor person.
Right. You are just sad all the time politically. San Francisco, we went there on our honeymoon. It's a nice place. My wife thought it was the stupidest place to ever go on a honeymoon. She wanted to go to the beach. I thought I want to go somewhere more culturally relevant. She thought I was an idiot.
But she married you.
Do what?
But she married you, so you won that one.
Yeah, I showed her. All right. All right. Let's talk about that financial crisis of 1857, which is a panic. Although we're not going to dance today. I know you. Fifth Block is so amped, by the way, to have a merger. And I forgot to tell you this one little thing. Whoever's class has the highest class average will choose their seats on the first day of second trimester.
I better get this thing.
I told you this on the first actual APUS essay test. Whichever class had the highest average got to do that, and they killed you guys. But I went ahead and I gave it to you that whoever has the highest class average, they will choose their seats first. And many of you, there are some issues. Now, like Brenda sits on that table back there, and Peyton sits on that table. You won't be in there. You'll be in second block anyway. But Cole sits there, right? There's
Is it my seat?
no. Your seat's open. This area is heavily seated. Yes, Reagan sits there. Do what?
Why is it such a big deal, though?
Yeah, they love it. They also are excited because they love to panic. You guys are crappy about panicking, and they're going to get you guys into it.
It's first period.
Yeah, it's
bro.
first. That doesn't mean anything. Panicking is still fun, whether it's first period.
Don't think you guys are too cool. I'll remind you that you live in Lawrenceburg, and acting like you're too cool is
It's
a
not
little
that
bit
too
embarrassing.
cool, I'm just kind of
Unless
aggressive
you're
with that.
independent.
Yeah.
Look at you. You're not too cool, Keaton.
I think
I live in Lawrenceburg, therefore I set the trends. You don't really.
I think Keaton is too cool.
I set all
People in
the
California
trends,
check my
to be
Facebook to
honest.
see what to wear.
All right. The financial crisis is really important in that what we're seeing is lots and lots of businesses begin to fail. Because think about this, and you talked about it in some of your transportation essays. What is happening to our country economically between the north, the south, and specifically the west? Well, yeah, but before we get to that, what are we starting to see changes in? Yeah, but aren't they starting to be interdependent, right? Isn't the East aren't they starting to rely on the Midwest for food?
Yeah.
And the West and South are relying on the North for manufactured goods? So they're becoming economically interdependent. And because of transportation and stuff, it's more easily connected. So what happens when businesses in one part of the country begin to fail? The effects become more widely spread, right? Does this make sense? The effects begin more widely spread. And a lot of this, remember, what is always our reason for these huge panics?
Land speculation.
Over speculation. This is over speculation in railroads. People are trying to buy up land and build railroads really, really quickly. And as unemployment begins to go up, there becomes to begin new calls for changes in land policy. We have all this land where very few people are living. And people start calling for the government to give away land. And guess the government's going to end up doing under Lincoln? Giving away land. Giving away lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of land. You ever heard of the Homestead Act before? We're going to talk about that. In fact, the Homestead Act is still in existence. There is land in America today that you can go and get for free if you live on it for 5 years. What's the problem, though? Northern Alaska. Not really not easily growing stuff in that area.
You only get to live for 5 years?
Yes, continues. All right. Okay. Now let's talk about the Lincoln-Douglas debates. Okay.
It's my favorite part, just because.
Who is Douglas?
He was an important.
He's our senator from Illinois, right? Who got the Kansas-Nebraska Act passed. He's in Illinois. This is 1858. This is not for president. This is for the Senate in 1858. And Lincoln's running against him. Lincoln comes out of retirement. Lincoln had been a congressman for one term, between 1844 to 1846. And then he was a state senator for a while. And then he was an attorney. Can you think of anybody else who was a state senator for a while, an attorney in Illinois, who only had one partial term in Congress and later became president? Yeah. So essentially what we're saying is Lincoln, Obama, same person.
It's like a reincarnation.
Not yet.
So,
Um,
is tall.
Both are tall.
Obama's not Lincoln tall. Lincoln's like man tall, isn't he though?
Lincoln.
Lincoln's like power forward tall.
No, he's more shooting guard tall. He's power forward tall back then. He's 6'4". Obama's 6'2", 6'3".
I always thought he was 6'6".
Clinton is giant. When Clinton was in office, he's still 6'4", but Clinton was like 6'4", 240, 250 when he was president. He's a big boy. He's tight end big.
I was under the impression Lincoln was like 6'7".
Yeah.
No. He looked taller than he was because of the top hats. I mean, he was tall for the era, but he was not recruited by UK to play forward.
I can imagine during the Lincoln-Douglas debates.
Now the thing about the Lincoln, first of all, this is when the Senate was. This is back then. People did not vote for senators. State legislatures voted for senators. In fact, that didn't change until 1913 with the 17th Amendment. But what we're going to see, and I'll talk more about this obviously, I guess tomorrow after the test, we're done with the territory stuff. This is going to establish Lincoln as a name. By the way, Douglas wins. But we'll get to that tomorrow. You should have plenty of evidence now for the slavery in the territories. Alright? I went fascinating on purpose to get it all out there. You've got Kansas-Nebraska Act. You've got Dred Scott decision. You've got Compromise in 1850. You've got Missouri Compromise. You got the Mexican War. You got the Wilmot Proviso. Do what? The only thing you have to think about is organization. There's plenty of evidence out there. Congress is doing plenty of stuff. There's plenty of hatred between the North and the South. Tied in with evidence going on in our country. Anti-slave literature. Right? All this stuff is going on. Yeah.
The social political economic work for this one?
What's the thing? What's the question actually?
How did Congress respond to the problem of slavery in territories? These two examples.
Okay, if I were you, I don't know that you can maybe do that economic, political, social. It depends on how you do it. Some people might just have one big fat paragraph of the Kansas-Nebraska Act and what all it did, right, and its ramifications. And then one about Compromise of 1850, linking that to Missouri Compromise, right, and popular sovereignty issues. Or you might have a popular sovereignty paragraph, right? You are welcome to text me about those questions.
You still have the papers.
Yeah. Oh, you want your essays back?